Okay. So in the previous session, we have discussed regarding how many types of locators that we have in Playwright, and what are different locators that it supports. So we have gone through with CSS selector and XPath. There are more number of where we can utilize. So whatever we have gone through in the yesterday session was related to the CSS selector. So when we select CSS selector, CSS in CSS is basically CSS selector is used to identify an element. It is basically used to find an element based on the style property of any of the element. So whatever the attribute they have given, based on that, it will work. Like the how do we write the locators? Based on that, it will work. So in terms of whenever we go and write locators in terms of CSS, so it says that if we have ID, if we have ID property of an element, then we can directly use hash and then ID, ID of the element, ID attribute of the element. And also we can use like tag name and then hash ID, which is again similar. We had seen if the tag name is input, then input hash username. Second, it says that if we have class, then you can directly use dot class name. So if the class name is, let's say, form control, then to access that particular element by utilizing CSS, we can directly use dot and then this particular value, the class value of the element. We have also seen how do we access by utilizing the different properties of an element in CSS. So we do not have to start with like double slash or single slash as we start in like XPath in other tool, which is like Selenium. So it will accept directly attribute equals to value. So let's say if name is a property, then we can directly use name equals to value. In the same way, if we have ID as a property, then we can use like ID equals to the value of the ID. Okay. And we can also combine this with the tag name. So again, the syntax is like tag name attribute equals to value. So if the tag name is input name equals to username. Then we have also seen like how do we traverse from parent to child. So this will be the parent tag, and then we have to just give either this angle bracket, which is like right angle bracket twice, and then the child tag name, or we can combine with the all these three. Like we can write locators in however it is able to identify. So example, if it is able to identify like name equals to username, then we can also give here name equals to username. If it is able to identify uniquely by using tag name, then we can directly use tag name. So for example, this was one of the thing where we have written like using the class name. So there was a class which we wanted to identify, like which we have identified. Then tag name dot class name is the one that we have written in terms of writing the locators. And then to traverse to the child element, we have just given like input, and then we had a value called as ID. So that is where we have used hash over here. We can also give just a space, a single space in between the tag, and it will be considered as like traversing from parent to child. Now, whenever we have to write a locator using text, so how do we identify a text? So for example, let's say if we have this particular website and we have to identify this username as a text, or we have to identify this particular value as a text, this one. So how do we identify? So we know like whenever there will be, an anchor tag, anchor bracket, sorry, angle bracket starting with like less than and greater than symbol. And after that, if there is any text value in between the opening tag and then the closing tag, then that is considered as a text value. So to identify this in Playwright, we can directly use text equals to value. That means we can directly use text equals to username colon over here. So if you see this one, we have just given the syntax as text equals to value, and that we have to write inside a single quote. Okay, we do not have anything called as text method or something. We can directly write text equal to value, which will be again, it is something like this. So we have said, we have just identified like there is a text which is like username colon. So if you have to write the locators for this, then you can write directly text equals to username colon and end with single quote. Okay, so this is one way. This is like one way where we can write using CSS selector. There is another way which is like XPath. So Playwright is again one of a tool which automatically identify the XPath. So automatically supports XPath as well. So if you try to write like let's say a locator for this username field, how do we write the locator? Basically earlier we had written ID, hash ID, which is like hash username using CSS selector. Now in terms of writing the locators by utilizing XPath, we have to just give like, we can either give star or we can also give the tag name. And then we can write it as @attribute equals to value, whatever the value it is having. So it says that a username starting with U as a capital value. And then we can okay, it has the value in all the lowercase. So we can write in this way as well. So how do we write the XPath? So here we can write like a relative XPath all the time. We do not have to go for other XPath. So relative XPath will be dynamic in nature, where we can start writing the XPath directly from anywhere in the page. So whenever we have to support XPath, the syntax for this used to be syntax to write. There are like a lot of different types of XPath that we can write. But in general, the syntax is, it will start with /. Either we can give asterisk in the sense, it will start checking from the HTML tag onwards. So from the first tag onwards, it will start checking, and wherever it finds and match the value, it will identify those elements based on the property that we give over here, that we provide over here in terms of putting the locators. So the syntax is /. Either you give asterisk, and then you can give @attribute equals to value. Okay, and so this value will be inside. This is the syntax where we write this one syntax, or we can also like / tag name @attribute equals to value. Okay, so this is the syntax where we can write the locators in XPath. Okay. There are again a lot of things. If you want to combine two of the locators, then you can write and then again properties. Those things we'll see in the later sections. So let's say if you just want to combine two of the values. So example, if we talk about in terms of this one, if we talk about the example to identify the username over here, username field over here, or username text field over here, then we can either write like /* and then a property which is like attribute @ID equals to the value of the attribute, or you can directly give the tag name as well. Okay, so here either you can use in this way, or we can write in this way as well, where we can just replace with asterisk. Okay, so this is again one way of writing, and then I'll provide you all the details inside the document for like how many types, in how many ways like we can write the XPath. You can just go through with the document and it will be helpful. in terms of writing the locators. But as we discussed earlier, so we'll be writing whatever it is feasible. Like sometimes we'll be writing the CSS selectors that we'll be using. Sometimes we'll be writing XPath to work with the element. Now there is another way, like let's say if we have ID available in a page. So let's say if we have automatically like ID as an attribute available in a page, then this will then we can directly utilize playwright syntax of identifying the locators. So we can directly write it as something known as directly we can write it as ID equals to value. Inside a single quote, we can directly write it as ID equals to value. So this will also work whenever you write like directly ID equals to value. If we have ID available in the page, then we can directly write ID equals to value as well. So in this way, if you see, like we have ID equals to username. So we can directly write over here, just like inside a single quote, we have to write ID equals to username. So we can directly define in this way as well. Okay. So
Praveen, in this case, suppose there are multiple elements are there. So username ID, sometimes it will be repeated, okay, for 2 elements, 3 elements. By that time, how can we differentiate?
Right. So at that point of time, we have to write a unique element. So whatever the unique element will be there, whatever the unique attribute it is trying to identify, that we can do. If let's say if there are, if there is no element which is uniquely identifying the element, if there is no locator which is uniquely identify the element, then there is two way. One way is you can identify the parent first, and then you can go to the child. Okay. In case if it is not matching, if it is still not matching, then we have another option where we can, that I'll again show you, but where we have another option where we can say like, let's say ID equals to username. There are different like n number of ID equals to username are matching in the field. Then what you can give is you can use a method called nth. It is nth, and then you can provide the index, like what index you want to use, whether it is 0th index or first index or so on. So it will basically return 0th index means the first element it is matching for the element inside the web page. If it is matching the second element, then we have to give like nth of 1. If it is matching third element, then nth of 2 and so on. This is one way. Let's say if your element is first one and it is still matching the n number of element, then you can directly use the first method as well, which will be able to identify the first element which is matching with this particular locator. Okay, so there are two ways. If our locator is able to identify different multiple elements, then there are two ways. So let's say if the locator is able to identify multiple elements, then to make it work for a single element, we have two ways to make it. One, by using an nth, method, which will take an index. So whenever you use nth on the nth method on the locators that you have given, example over here, it's something like this. Let's say if it is able to match like multiple elements, so what we can say is directly you can say like nth of 0. So this will identify first matching element the page in the website. Okay. The second way is we can take a help of first method. which will be again the similar things, which will be able to identify the first element. If our matching value is the first or last, let's say if we know that whatever we want to identify that is working as a either first element or last element, then either you can use first method or last method. So this first method will be able to identify the first matching element. Last method will be able to identify the last matching element of the locators. So instead of nth, we can also use first. And in the same way, we can also use for last. If we know that by using this locator, if it is matching the last element, then we can utilize the last method of the Playwright that they have given in Playwright. Okay.
Okay, Praveen.
Right. So this is how we basically write our locators in terms of Playwright. Now let's say a few of the things that we will be going through in our session. I'll create like from today onwards, we'll be starting with writing a code like in a organized manner. So let's create a new file which will be saying as like UI basics.spec.js. We know whenever we have to write any test case or any test file in Playwright, we have to give name.spec is mandatory.js. Now we know first step will go to import like Playwright module. So we have to just write Playwright and then /test. And we have to store it in a Playwright variable. So when you select Playwright variable, it will go inside curly braces. Normal variable we can directly utilize without using curly braces. Now, whenever we have to create a test, I've already copied from the other class, but whenever we have to write a test, we'll start with test and then we can give the name over here, the title of the. So let's say login into the application is the test name that we are trying to write over here. Okay. So, and then we have used, we know like why are we using async and why are we using await. So as we know, like JavaScript is an asynchronous language. So just make it work in a synchronous manner. We are trying to use async and await so that each and every step will wait for the previous step to get completed. The action of the previous step to get completed, and then it will go for the next step. So what we're trying to do here, we are trying to log in into the application. Sorry, we are trying to launch the URL over here, which is this URL. And then we are trying to fill the username and password. So basically, whatever the text value it is having over here, we can fill the username. Here we have like in terms of this application, we have username, we have password, and then we can click on sign in button to check how it is working. Okay. So based on the syntax that we have gone in the previous session as well as a couple of minutes back, so you can see like there are different syntax by writing the locators we can utilize. So I'll just like have a practice so that you'll get mastered in writing locators in Playwright. But we can whatever it is familiar, we can try to write the locators in that way. I'll just like at least have mastering kind of things in CSS selector and writing XPath. Now we know that like whenever we have to write an XPath, so let's say we are trying to write an XPath of ID. Let's say I already have ID, so we'll directly use something called ID equals to. We can directly utilize a property or a locator in Playwright, which is like ID equals to username. So if you give in this way, like ID equals to username, you can say that it is still able to match one of a property which is matching over here as this particular value. Okay. Our goal is to validate this one. But if it is not matching any value in application, I'll suggest like installing one of a plugin, which is one of a one of a plugin or one of a tool which is used to identify whether the locator is working or not. And that will be known as, and that is basically selectors hub. Okay. So selectors hub, you can try to download. Selectors hub, you can try to download. It will suggest us like XPath. It will also suggest that like CSS. That means it will give you a different kind of locators that it can identify for an element. Okay. So for now, we'll write ID equals to username directly, that we have seen over here. In terms of, if we have ID, we can directly use inside a single quote ID equals to username. If you go here, we have directly, I have already used like ID equals to username. So inside a single quote, if we have ID property or attribute available for an element, we can directly use ID equals to whatever the value it has given. And then we know, we have discussed earlier the fill method. So fill method is used to enter the text in a fill method we have in Playwright, which is used to enter the text in a text box. So it says like set a value to the input field. Okay, so we are trying to enter the value inside a text box, which is similar to send keys in Selenium. Okay, so we are just trying to fill enter the text inside a username. And then second way, we know like how do we write the locators by utilizing. So for, let's say, if you have to write a locator for password, we'll try to write in a different way, which is like by using XPath. So what we can do is XPath start with like double slash, and then we can write it as a tag name. Let's say double slash tag name. And then what we can do is we can write at the rate and then attribute. So what is the attribute that we have? We can use like name attribute as well. So it says like name equals to what is the value for that, which is password. We can like write different attribute, not only the name or ID. You can also write class if it is uniquely identifying. We can also use type if it is like uniquely identifying, and so on. If any attribute is available which is trying to identify the element which is intended for us in terms of writing the test, we can use those locators in terms of the writing test. So we are saying like, I'll just write over here the XPath in this way. One more thing, that either you can write the locators. So whenever you see like there are two type of string. One is like otter, which is trying to write the locators in a string format. Either you can use single quote or double quote. There's no harm in using either single quote or double quote. But whenever you have inside as well as string, which we can see here as at the rate name equals to value. So at that point of time, if you are trying to use like otter part as a double quote, then you have to use here as a single quote. If you're trying to use single quote as an auto part for writing the locators, then you have to use for the inside string, for the inner string, we have to make it in double quotation, so that it will be able to identify that my single quote is starting from here and ending here. If you declare both in the same format, which is like identifying by single quote or single quote, then it will consider that the single quote starts from here and then ended over here. And then you have written some kind of values, and then again starting single quote and ending here the single quote. So either you can write the inner string value in double quotation or single quotation based on whatever the outer value or outer value of the quote, which is like either single quote or double quote that we are trying to write. Okay. And then again, we have a fill method in Playwright, which is used to enter the element. So we are just trying to enter the value, which is known as learning in terms of password. And now again, we can identify for our goal is to just click on sign in. So we are just trying to identify what, like, how do we write the locators for sign in? So we can write a locators like, let's say we have ID over here. So we can directly write hash by using the CSS selector. So you can directly write hash and then ID value. So what is the ID value? ID value, it is saying that sign in button, which is again uniquely identifying. So how do we know it is uniquely identifying? That means we can see like 1 of 1. Whenever it says that 1 of 1, that means there is only one element which is identifying with this particular locator. Okay. So we can write in that way as well. So if you just give over here in terms of locators for signing, which is like hash and then the ID value, it will also work in terms of writing the locators in CSS selector way. Okay, and then what we have to do on sign in, we have to just click on the sign in button. So we are trying to click on the sign in button. So there is again another method that we have in Playwright, which is known as a click method. Click method is used to This method is used to click on an element in the web page. Okay, so whenever we use click method of the Playwright, it will try to click on an element on the web page. Okay, then what we are trying to say is, so this will basically able to log in inside our application. Right, it will basically launch the URL, then we'll fill the username, password, and it will click on sign in button. So let's say whether it is working or not first. So we are trying to use the browser name as Chromium over here. We can use like different as well. Let's say if we just want to use Firefox, we can also see like Firefox as well. So we have to give the name exactly however it has given in terms of name over here. Okay. So let's see how it is working in this way. Right. So we're just trying to run this on the Safari browser. WebKit is known as Safari in Playwright. Now, let's say whether it is working or not. So how do we run our test case? Whenever we have to run the test case in Playwright, we basically have an option to run like using a command called npx. Okay, so we have a command called npx playwright and then test. So we know that there are a lot of tests available. We have first test.spec, there are a couple of tests available, and then UI basic, we have one. So if you make it as dot only, if you just keep dot only over here on test, then it will only run that particular test case. If you just make it as only, then it will only run that particular test case. So I'll just make it as made this particular test case as only, and you can see like it will only be able to run this particular test case. Now, how do we know whether only this particular test case have successfully run or not? So we can use whenever your test case gets completed, like if it is success, then it will give you a command to open the report, which is npx playwright show-report. So if you click on if you use this particular command, it will give you, the complete report that it tries to do. So you can see the title is login into the application. That is what this particular test case is saying, that we have written it in such a way like it is taking the title as login into the application. That means it completely successfully ran this particular test case itself. Now you can see like it has successfully generated the screenshot as well as videos. So if you see the videos, you can see like it filled the username, password, and clicked on sign in as well. Okay. Now this is just a simple things where we have just created a sign in. Now just
I have
sign in.
one question here.
Mhm.
So suppose we are having 10 cases here, okay, in this page, 10
Right.
test cases, just like logging into the application, some
Right.
filling the data like that, okay. So out of 10, if we are giving only on 2 cases, is it possible?
Yes. Yes. So let's say if you are trying to see the only, we'll say that wherever you make it as only, then only those test case will run. So for example, let's say you have one test case in this particular file where you have made it as only, and you have another file where this particular test case is there, which you want to run as well. So you can give only here as well. Okay, so if you just make it for any test case, not only in the different file, but inside the same file, if you make it as only, then all those only test case, like wherever you have given only, all those test case will run one by one. So if you just want to see, not only in the different files, you can make it inside the single file as well. If you just want to run, let's say 5 test case, you can make it as all 5 as a dot only.
Got it.
So let's say we have created over here as a for 1 in this particular file and other in the other file. So if you just run this particular command and npx playwright test, then we see like it is saying running 2 test cases, and we can see both of the test cases have launched parallelly. Again, it says that 2 test case passed.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. This is very helpful if you have like hundreds of test case and then you want to run only single test case. At that point of time, it will be very helpful. Okay. Now we have just logged into the application. So this is not only the things that we try to do. Like this is just a sign in, but we do not know whether we have moved to the home page or not. So that means we have to do some kind of assertion as well. Okay, so to write the assertion, that means we have to validate whether we have successfully logged in or not. We have just logged in into the application for now. Right. So we'll see like how it looks like in terms of validating the assertion. So whenever you move to the home page, we have to validate some of the value, which will say that, okay, we are on the home page, right? So let's say we say that there is a text which is known as proto commerce home, right? So we'll say that whether if this text is available on the page, that means we have successfully logged in. Okay. So how do we write the locators for this? So we have to first write the locators to identify this element, and then say that if this particular is visible on the page, that means we have successfully logged in into the application. This is one of a scenario where we are trying to test it out. Now let's say how do we have to validate this? So if you say like we have class name as well over here. So if we give something known as like dot, let's say how many identifying it is able to identify 5. We can say like 3 of 5. That means it is able to identify 5 elements having the same class name. Okay, let's try to use another method that we have in terms of Playwright. So how do we start writing the test case? Test step is like we have to write await and then page dot locator. And what is the locator? We have identified a class name. So by using the class name, we are just trying to write dot and then this one. And whenever we write dot and then class name, so whenever we try to identify over here, we can say like what is our intended element. So intended value that we are trying to identify is proto commerce home, right? So in this way, we can say like on what number of the identification, like whether it is first it is trying to identify, or second, or third, and so on. So we can say that at second index, it is trying to identify the value, identify the element that we are trying to get it from the page. So at second place means basically index start, whenever we use like, we basically have to use nth over here. That means we are trying to find nth element. And here, it is again, the index start with 0 from over here. So we know that we are trying to identify the second element. Our main goal is to identify the proto-commerce home over here, and that is basically appearing on the second index. So to use this, we have a method called nth, which will work on the locators that will be writing. It will basically not directly you can also give like over here, but it will nth method will basically work on the locators that we are trying to write. So here you can see we have written a locator, and on that locator we are saying that I need second index, second element, which is trying to match. That is our that is what we are trying to validate, or that is what we are trying to get the value from this particular locators. So we are trying to identify our value as proto-commerce home, right? So we have written one locator, which is trying to identify multiple elements. So to just identify our main element, we are using here nth method of the Playwright that they have given for the locator. Nth of what index? So index start from 0. So 0 index will identify the first element. First index will identify the second element, and so on. Okay. So we're trying to say like nth of the first element, and then you can say like is visible in the page. So is visible is another method. So is visible is again a method which will so is visible will be able to check whether an element is visible in the page or not. Element is visible on the page or not. Okay, or in the website or in the application or no. So is visible we can try to utilize. It will return us basically either true or false. If it is not visible, then it will return us a false value. If it is visible, then it will return us a true value. So you can see like returns whether the element is visible or not. Okay. So if it is visible, then it will say like, okay, we have successfully logged in, and that we can either we can store it in a variable, which is like, let's say we say as home page, as it is trying to return us a value which is either true or false. Because if the element is visible, then it will return us a true. If it is not visible, then it will return us a false value. So if it is visible, then it will return us a true value. If it is not, then it will return us a false value. So this is just simple things that we are saying that whether it is visible or not. Okay, and that we have stored inside a variable which is known as home page. Now let's say if we also have to, this is a simple things where we are asserting the value whether that is visible in the element. But if we have to use exact assertion, then we can take help of expect method that Playwright has given. So to use expect, we have to export that as well. This expect is also available inside a Playwright module, a test module of the Playwright. Okay. So to use like by using expect method, we can say like we can write our assertions to validate whether the element is matching, whether the element has some kind of text. There are a lot of expect assertions available. So if you see like there are assertions, there are like n number of assertions, which is like close to 30 assertions we have available in Playwright, which says that to be attached, to be checked, to be disabled, enabled, to be hidden, the element is hidden or not, element is visible or not, contain text, to have some kind of attribute, whether it is having a class, whether it is having a count of 0, 1, 2, and so on, to have text. And there are a lot of other values available based on, based on some kind of values that they have given. Okay, then we have like to be, to be truthy, to be false, to contains, and so on. Okay, all those things we'll see in the later section. Like as soon as we progress into the script. So here our goal is to validate whether this home page is visible, whether this home, like this particular value, this particular element is visible in the page or not. So we are saying that expect home page. That means we are saying that if the login is successful, then this home page will return either true or false by utilizing the is visible method. So we are saying that expect home page, either this is true or false. In our case, we are saying that the login should have to be successful. So we have to say like dot. Let's say we will be using to be. We can directly use to be truthy. Okay, to be truthy is another method which will ensure that a value that we are trying to expect in this, like we are trying to expect or validate, should be a true value. Okay, so if you just hover on this, it says that ensure that value is true in Boolean context. Okay. So it will validate whether the value that we are trying to validate is true or not. Okay, let's say if you just want to check like whether that is a false or not, then we have a method called to be falsy. Okay. This is again another simple method that Playwright has given, which is known as to be truthy, to be falsy. That means it will validate whether whatever we are trying to validate over here is true or not. If it is not true and we are trying to validate false, then we can use to be falsy. Okay, so we can use to be truthy as well to check whether that is really matching or not. Okay, we can also write some custom element that will again see in terms of this. This is not even required, but await is not required over here because we are already using await inside this. But anyways, like let's see how it is working. So what we are trying to validate, we have clicked on and like we have signed in successfully, and an element is visible in the page by using is visible as well as by using a custom assertion. Okay, so if you just try to run this will run and say like what happened over here is it is saying like it received a false. Okay, so why did it receive a false? Now another things come into picture where we see like auto waiting concept in locator. So what is auto waiting? It says that it received a false, whereas we are trying to validate true. Now let's see how it is. Wait. If you see the auto waiting, then auto waiting say that I will be working on only some of the methods. So if you see like it says, if you use check, click, double click, tap, uncheck, hover, fill, clear, select option, select text, scroll into view, focus, press sequentially, and set input file. If you use these methods in your test automation, then I'll automatically wait for default value of 30 seconds. Okay, so default in Playwright, it will wait for 30 seconds. So it says that if you use all these methods, whatever is mentioned in the table, it will use 30 seconds for those elements to display in the first, like it will check like whether that is visible in the element, whether that is stable, enabled and editable. It will all check before making it fade. Now in terms of Playwright, we can say Playwright says that Playwright includes auto retrying. That means it will again wait for an element to appear if you use these kind of methods, which is says that to be attached, to be checked, to be disabled, to be hidden, to be visible, and other things it has given. But we do not find anything called to be truthy over here. So it says that whenever you use to be truthy or to be falsy, we have to make sure that basically we have to make sure that this particular element or is visible method, whenever we use, we have to make sure that the element is appearing in the page before going for validating is visible method. What is meant by that? So what happened if you see the okay, let me open the report again. If you see the report for this particular, it says that, see, it is just trying to, it has not even passed, like it has not even gone to the home page, and it is trying to validate whether the assertion, whatever we are trying to do over here, is visible or not. And that is why it has given us a false, because it has not even navigated to the home page, but it is trying to validate whether each visible is available or not. Okay. That means whenever you use is visible, it will not be able to automatically wait for an element to appear in the page. Getting the point?
Yes, Praveen. So this is visible method means we don't have in the list for the waiting.
Right. So this is visible method is not included in the auto waiting list that Playwright has given. You can see here, it is available for check, click, and so on.
Okay.
Few of the other methods, but is visible is not available. Okay.
Okay.
So in that way, what do we do? So one thing is like, we can say, wait for basically this particular element to appear in the page. One way is this. I'll show you like different way. So one way is, we can say like page.locator, then identify the element. Here we are trying to identify the second element and then say that wait for. Wait for is again another method which returns when the element specified by locator is available in the page. It will wait for 30 seconds to check whether the element is available or not. So you can directly say wait for. What wait for? Then the locators to wait for this particular locator till for the next 30 seconds, like auto waiting concept, it will try for wait for method. Okay. So we are saying,
Praveen, what is the need of wait for? Because if we are not using here, this is visible. So this is the general thing, okay? And we already written here await in the front of starting of this line.
right,
So
right. So
what is the
this,
meaning of this wait for here?
right. I'll explain. So this await keyword will make our code in a synchronous manner. This await keyword will not wait for your element to appear in the page.
Okay, got it,
Okay. So
got it.
this await keyword is just make your code in a synchronous manner. Okay. When we say like wait for is another method that Playwright has given. It will wait for an element to appear or to load in the page. Okay. We can also give like whether the element is visible, hidden, and so on inside the wait for. But wait for is one of a method which will try to basically check whether the element has appeared in the page or not. So this will wait, and then like this will try to check whether the element is appeared in the page or not. And then we can use is visible over here, and you can use to be truthy as well over here. So when we say like is visible, will basically not wait for element to appear in the page. It will it will directly check after previous step. It will directly check whether the element is appearing or not. And if you say like wait for, then this will wait for like the default time of 30 seconds, whether the element is appearing in the page or not. If it appears, then well and good, it will go to the next step. If not, then it will throw us an error after 30 seconds. Okay, let's try to see how it is working. So we are trying to run and we are saying like wait for an element to appear in the page. So now we can see like it clicked on sign in, and then it has moved to the home page. That means it has waited for the element to appear in the page by using just wait for. So wait for is again another method in Playwright, which used to wait for the locator here in the page. Okay, wait for the locator or the element. Okay, so this is what the use of wait for. So this is one way. If you now see the report that it has generated, then we can see like it has successfully waited for the application, like um, um, element to wait. We can see like it has taken the screenshot of the home page. Now, if you see in the videos as well, it has filled username, password, clicked on sign in, and then the home page have successfully loaded, and then it was able to identify whether the element is matching or not. Okay. So
Yes.
this is
One more question here. Go to our code. So what is the meaning of to be truthy here? Because is visible already be used here, okay? So
right.
yeah.
Right.
You
This is
answer
one
my
way.
question, okay?
Right. This is one way where we can check like, see, this is just saying that whether is available, like whether the element is visible or not, right? So this is not a complete assertion. It is just saying that, okay, whether the element is visible or not, it will give us a true or false. Okay, and that true or false, we are trying to check whether that is true or not. Whenever you use to be truthy, it will say like whatever we are trying to expect from by using the expect assertion, whether this home page is trying to give us a true value or not. If you feel like it is giving us a true value, then we can use to be truthy. If it is throwing us a false value, then we can use to be falsy. Now, this might be confusion over here. Why? Because we are using is visible, right? Now, let's say, how do we write a custom assertion by just utilizing the same method over here, the same locator over here? Just for a second, just forget about this line, which says that whether the element is visible or not. Now, what we are saying is we are directly trying to write a locator. It says that base.locator, which is like base. Okay, base.locator. Then we have given a locator over here, and we are saying that the first element. Okay, so what is first element? We can also use another method called as to be visible. Okay, now you can see like in this particular step, in the previous step, we were trying to just use a playwright method, which is a simple playwright method, which checks like whether the element is visible in the page or not. We were just trying to get true, like whether it is visible, it will either give us a true or false value. Now we are trying to do the same kind of operation in the assertion itself. Okay, here we were trying to get whether that is true or false, whether the element is visible in the page or not. Now we are trying to do the same operation inside the assertion itself. So how do we write the assertion in Playwright? By using expect, right? So expect function, we are trying to write a locators over here. We are saying that the second element, which is available inside the page, is visible or not. That means we are saying that this particular element should be visible, like to be visible in the page. If that is visible, then that means we have logged in successfully. If it is not visible, then that means like the login have like log whatever we tried to do in terms of login have failed. Did you understand what we're trying to do here?
Yes, Praveen, I understood. My question is to be visible. I understood. Means we logged in or not. My question
Right.
is like if after this one means before code, okay, we have done that is visible, okay.
Right.
After that, we are writing that this to be truthy. So how can we understand this text means equal giving the correct value?
Right. So okay.
Because the text we are not writing anywhere, okay, in the code.
So what we are saying is this to be truthy will only return us true value. Okay. So this to be truthy will check whether the element that we are trying to add. So how do we write like expect? So we have to write expect value. We can see like expect is a method which takes actual value and then it will compare with the other value that we have given or the method that we have given. Okay, so here we are saying that the actual value is this. Okay, whatever we are getting from the previous value, previous step. So this home page is having an actual value. It can have, as we are using is visible, so we know that is visible is will return a Boolean value. So either it will be a true or false. And now we are trying to expect whether whatever this particular step is trying to return, okay, whether this is true or false, is in terms of our assertion, we are saying that if we have logged in successfully, that means this particular element should be visible in the page. That means we are saying that it should be visible. So is visible should have to give us or return us a true value, right?
I got it. I got it. I got it. Means here
Right.
we are comparing the text here. If we are having some value there, we are thinking like it is already logged in. Okay.
Exactly. So we are
Yeah.
trying to validate in terms of expect, it is the actual value. So we are saying
Yeah.
that this actual value is true or not. So whenever you use to be truthy, will be considered as a true value. Okay, to be
Yes.
truthy
Got
will
it.
give us a true value, and we are trying to validate, compare whether this home page, whatever it is trying to return us, is true or not. So that is what we are trying to do here.
So
The
one of
other,
the method is there to be false, correct?
right? Yes,
Can you try with this one in place of two?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So we'll say like to be false, right? And we'll do it this as well. So here we are saying that this will, we know that this will return true because we have successfully logged in. And then we are trying to validate whether this is a false or not. Now, in terms of, report, it will basically say, it will, so it will, okay. So it will give us, so if we try to run this and we say like npx playwright test, it will start running our test and then say it is waiting for some of the element, and then see it has failed us. It says that we received true value from the previous step. We received whatever it has received. It is saying that we received true value, but we are trying to check whether it is false or not.
Yeah, I got it. Yes.
Okay. So whenever you use to be falsy, it will try to check whether whatever we are comparing over here in expect, whether that is false or not. Whenever you use to be truthy, we'll say that whether that is true or not. Okay. So that is what we are trying to validate over here. But let's say if you do not want to use like these two lines, then we can directly write that inside the assertion, which says that expect this particular locator is visible or to be visible in the page or not. So this is trying to check whether that it makes sure that whether the element is visible or not. If it is not visible, then our assertion will fail over here. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
So if we try to check again the same things, waiting for element, and then we can see that it has passed. That means it is visible. Now, if you, there is another method called as to be hidden. So if you use this, that means it will try to check whether the element is hidden in the website or not. That means the element is not visible in the website. So if you try to use this method, which is known as to be hidden, then you see like it will wait in the element to check whether the element is hidden or not. And as I said, this to be hidden will wait for some of the times. So how many times? Whenever you use assertion, which is like expect function, then for expect function, the default wait time is 5 seconds. Okay. For expect, the default wait time is 5 seconds, whereas you can override that as well in the Playwright config. We'll see this later, like how can you override. But for expect, whenever we use expect function in terms of assertion, the default waiting time will be 5 seconds. So it says that timed out for 5 seconds, and we did not find that the element which is available inside the page is hidden in the page or not. Okay. So
Yes,
this method, which is known as to be visible, basically will check whether the element is visible in the page or not. To be hidden, will check whether the element is hidden in the page or not. Okay, so this is what the use of assertion, and this is how we basically write the assertion in Playwright. Okay, so this is what, like, we've just tried to log in into the application, and then we try to validate whether the element is visible in the page or not using different types of locators that we have gone through in terms of theory. Okay.